When punishment effects are observed, the status of the reinforcer maintaining the behavior must also be considered. Behavior targeted for reduction is occurring because it has been reinforced, and motivating operations that establish the value of that reinforcer influence both the behavior and the effectiveness of punishment. If a behavior increases when reinforcement has been restricted, any punishment procedure must be implemented while the motivating operation for that reinforcer is in effect. Otherwise, there may be little behavior to reduce. For example, a punishment procedure will only abate behavior when the relevant motivating operation makes the reinforcer valuable at that time. In absence of that motivating operation, punishment effects may not be observed. These relations highlight the interconnected roles of reinforcement, punishment, and motivating operations and emphasize that punishment procedures cannot be evaluated without considering the motivational variables that support the behavior. Environmental events often have more than one effect on behavior, and motivating operations are no exception. A single event may simultaneously influence current responding and future behavior through different functional relations. In operant chains, certain stimuli may evoke behavior while also strengthening preceding responses. Motivating operations can alter the current frequency of behavior as antecedent variables and, when presented as consequences, can also change future behavior. Recognizing these multiple effects prevents confusion between immediate behavior changes and longer term learning effects. It also helps clarify why some events appear to function in more than one role within a behavioral sequence. Understanding that motivating operations can participate in complex chains of control allows for more accurate interpretation of behavior and avoids oversimplified explanations that attribute change to a single variable. Motivating operations can be involved in both reinforcement and punishment effects, depending on how often and when they occur. As antecedents, motivating operations alter the current frequency of behavior by establishing or abolishing the effectiveness of consequences. As consequences, some of these same events may alter the future frequency of behavior. For example, events that evoke behavior by establishing a reinforcer may also function as punishers if they occur contingently after a response. Conversely, events that abolish reinforcer effectiveness may function as reinforcers when presented following a behavior. These dual roles depend on timing, contingency, and the nature of the event. Recognizing that the same environmental change can have different functions under different conditions helps explain seemingly contradictory effects and underscores the importance of precise functional analysis in applied behavioral analysis. Although motivating operations can have multiple effects, important qualifications apply. Some events have gradual onsets that make them ineffective as consequences, even though they function as motivating operations. For example, deprivation may evoke behavior, but it is unlikely to function as punishment because it does not occur abruptly following a response. In contrast, events with sudden onset can function as both motivating operations and consequences. Similarly, events that abolish the effectiveness of a reinforcer as antecedents may still function as reinforcers when delivered contingently. These distinctions emphasize that the temporal properties of events matter when determining their function. Without careful attention to timing and contingency, it is easy to misclassify the role of an event plays in behavior change. A precise analysis requires considering whether an event is functioning as an antecedent, a consequence, or both. Condition motivating operations are environmental variables that acquire their motivational effects through learning history. Unlike unconditioned motivating operations, their value altering effects depend on prior experience. Conditioned motivating operations alter the effectiveness of other stimuli as reinforcers or punishers and change the current frequency of behavior related to those stimuli. These variables are motivationally neutral before their relation to other motivating operations or reinforcement contingencies is established. Once conditioned, they function in the same way as unconditioned motivating operations, producing both value-altering and behavior-altering effects. Understanding conditioned motivating operations expands the analysis of motivation beyond biological variables and allows behavior analysts to account for complex learned sources of motivation. Conditioned motivating operations can be classified into three types based on how they are established and how they affect behavior. A surrogate condition motivating operation acquires its effects by being paired with another motivating operation and comes to produce similar value altering and behavior altering effects. A reflexive condition motivating operation alters its relation to itself by establishing its own removal as reinforcement or punishment. A transitive condition motivating operation establishes the effectiveness of another stimulus as a reinforcer or punisher. Prior to learning, these events are motivationally neutral. Their effects emerge only through specific histories of pairing or functional relations with reinforcement or punishment. This classification system allows behavior analysts to distinguish among different sources of learned motivation and to analyze complex behavior environments relations with greater precision. Each type of condition motivating operation alters what is valuable in the moment and influences behavior accordingly, even though the motivating effect itself is learned rather than biologically given. A surrogate condition motivating operation is a previously neutral stimulus that acquires motivational properties through pairing with another motivating operation. Repeated pairing with an unconditioned motivating operation allows the neutral stimulus to produce similar effects. In the restaurant example, food deprivation increases the value of food and evokes food-seeking behavior. Because visits to restaurants often occur when food deprivation is in effect, the restaurant becomes paired with that motivating operation. Over time, the restaurant itself can establish food as a reinforcer and evoke behavior that has produced food, even when deprivation is weak or absent. The restaurant functions as a surrogate standing in for the original motivating operation. This process illustrates how environmental stimuli can acquire motivational control through experience, sometimes producing behavior that appears inconsistent with biological needs, yet remains consistent with learning history. Research supports the existence of surrogate condition motivating operations. When two stimuli are paired with the same reinforcer under different motivating conditions, organisms often prefer the stimulus associated with higher deprivation. This suggests that the stimulus paired with stronger motivating operations acquires additional motivational control. Studies with adults have demonstrated similar effects, in which flavored or colored stimuli paired with high-value motivating operations were preferred over those paired with lower value operations. These findings indicate that the stimuli themselves function as surrogate motivating operations, temporarily altering behavior as if the motivating operation were stronger than actually is. Such evidence supports the idea that motivational effects can transfer to neutral stimuli through pairing. These results also help explain why certain environmental cues can evoke strong behavior even when biological deprivation is minimal. Surrogate condition motivating operations have important implications in applied settings. Diverted attention provides an example in which a previously neutral stimulus acquires motivational properties through pairing with low levels of reinforcement. When caregivers attend to another person, attention to the individual is reduced. If problem behavior has historically produced attention under these conditions, diverted attention may become paired with low attention and acquire motivating effects. As a result, diverted attention can evoke problem behavior that had not previously occurred in assessment context. Providing attention non-contingently functions as an abolishing operation and reduces problem behavior, weakening the motivating effect of the surrogate stimulus. This example illustrates how features of everyday environments can acquire motivational control unintentionally and highlights the importance of analyzing learning history when problem behavior emerges under specific conditions. Research has also shown that surrogate condition motivating operations can influence stereotypy. When a neutral stimulus is repeatedly paired with a condition that functions as an establishing operation for stereotypy, the stimulus may later evoke higher levels of that behavior. In applied contexts, this means that environmental features associated with the motivating operations can come to exert control over problem behavior. For example, delivering a stimulus that evokes stereotypy following compliance may inadvertently establish the instruction as a surrogate motivating operation. This pairing can increase the value of automatic reinforcement and evoke stereotypy. These findings demonstrate how motivational variables can be transferred to neutral stimuli and persist over time. Weakening these relations requires unpairing procedures, either by presenting the stimulus without the motivating operation or ensuring the motivating operation occurs equally in the absence of the stimulus.